first trip to India with college students, I experienced what a lot of Westerners feel about the country. It's so dirty. Garbage everywhere. Overflowing dumpsters with more piled high next to these inadequate receptacles. Cows and chickens and dogs wandering the streets, casually dropping their excrement behind them. Everywhere, trash burned in little heaps on the side of the road. Plastic bags included, as cows browsed about the smoking piles. Those cows ate anything they liked, and sometimes including the plastic bags. I found all this dirt and garbage difficult. I, who had been raised never to litter, never to toss anything out of the car window as we traveled down the thruway, not even a peach pit or an apple core. My father was very conscientious about this and often drew our attention to the signs along the highway indicating fines for littering. Hundreds of dollars even for a first offense. "Who's going to pay for that if you get caught, huh?" he would say. I'm not sure why he was so strict about littering. I'd seen him toss plenty of rusting metal over the hill on his property, the part he couldn't get to easily. But he reinforced the no littering line so strongly that the admonition sticks with me today. No peach pits or apple cores out the window, let alone paper or plastic. I feel horrified when I see people tossing litter out their windows. Something that happened to me last Wednesday when I was almost home. Soda cans and cups and hamburger wrappers flying back into the windshield. But the thoughts of streets full of feces and burning piles of plastic, dumpsters overflowing, was really very intense to bear. Still, those singular, if widespread, instances of pollution were nothing compared to the state of the air quality and the ocean water. Journeying to the highest point in the city of Chennai, a place holy with a shrine dedicated to the Apostle Thomas, who is said to have Christianized South India, I could almost see the vast city sprawling below. I say almost because the air pollution was like a thick veil between my eyes and the scene down there. The outline was there through the brown-gray haze, but not the details, not the plight of the people. The ocean had a similar brown-gray color as it crashed into the sandy coast. We were warned against swimming because of some significant and highly visible riptides, but nothing could have persuaded me to put a toe into that filthy water. You know, the life expectancy in India is 11 years earlier than that for a U.S. citizen. And for the Dalit, the untouchable people, they die 15 years earlier than the average American. I can be high-minded and high-handed about tossing trash out my car window, but how blind was I? How blind I had become to the large-scale and devastating pollution of industrial production. Production that makes possible my regular, ordinary, stateside life. One of the reasons colleges support educational immersion trips like the one I took to India is for the valuable process of defamiliarization. That's when what you witness serves to unsettle you from ideas that you unconsciously hold, ideas sitting there unexamined and so dangerous in that latent state. Confronting the small and large-scale pollution in Chennai, my fixed ideas about the environmental state of the planet began, finally, you might say, to slip and crash down. That trip was worth the risk for that insight alone. I grew into adulthood in the 1980s, and I lived an entirely typical American lifestyle. I did not think about where my clothing came from, where my food came from, where the heat and the light from my apartment came from. If I returned bottles to the store or thought about gas mileage, it was only to save money so I could buy some more things. Between 1980 and 1990, I am ashamed to say, I bought 4 different upholstered sofas, kicking them to the curb whenever my kitty cats tore them up too much. I don't have any of those couches, not one of them anymore. They've been replaced over the last 25 years by 6 more. Slightly better track record, I still have all those. This is just a sample of the way I lived, fully enmeshed within a lifestyle of purchase, followed by disposal. When you get bored with it, or it breaks, just get a new one. Now, even in the 1980s, I had some limited consciousness of the state of the world, of our planet. For instance, I wondered about whether it was a good idea to bring children into the mess. I was married for 8 years before my spouse and I decided to have kids. We really worried over the risk of bringing new life into the ecological disaster that I identified mostly in terms of the nuclear industry, with the horrors of the enduring radioactive half-life and the image of that clock with the hands almost to midnight, symbolically just minutes away from the warring governments of the globe blowing us all to smithereens. There is nothing I would change concerning the birth of my children. They brought such tremendous love and light into my life, along with a lot of sorrow and dirt, a lot of dirt. But the guilt and the shame I feel now, the guilt and the shame for my blindness about the state of the world, of our planet, the guilt and shame for all the resources I wasted on whims about furniture. We are, all of us, even if we don't like it and try hard to be different, we are a part of the wasteful and destructive American culture, even as we fight it in our ways. And even though you already know how really bad it is, I'm going to give you some details from my recent reading on climate justice anyway. I'm going to deliver the very worst news, even though this is perhaps the last thing you want to hear about on a snowy Sunday morning. It's winter and it snowed. Something is right with the world for once. Before I do that telling, though, before the bad news, I want you to do something with me. I want you to say with me, I know I can go on. I know we can go on. Say it with me. I know I can go on. I know we can go on. Say it with me. I know I can go on. I know we can go on. Say it and take a friend's hand if you want to. I know I can go on. I know we can go on. We can go on. We will go on. The warmth and the welcome of this community, it matters. Okay, here's some of the very bad news. And keep holding each other's hands if you want to, if you need to. This information is from a book by Wen Stevenson called What We Are Fighting For Now Is Each Other, Dispatches from the Front Lines of Climate Justice. This was published in 2015. Here we go. According to Stevenson, catastrophic warming by any human definition is virtually certain. Indeed, already happening. Because even in the very near term, what's catastrophic depends on where you live and how poor you are, and more often than not, the color of your skin. Despite much talk and actual international climate talks, our leaders cannot muster the political will to do what is necessary to stop these crimes against the globe, to stop warming from happening further. This is Stevenson again. We are plunging headlong toward the worst case scenarios: critical global food and water shortages, rapid sea level rise, social upheaval, and beyond. And there's more. On our current trajectory, well within this century, more than a third of the human beings on this planet could face a catastrophic lack of water. Last time I checked, you need water to grow food. Within this century, we ourselves, or people we know and love deeply, even our own children, will likely experience water and food shortages, or have to bear the guilt and shame for the ways that any privilege they possess will spare them while they watch the poor and the vulnerable die. I know this is a horrific vision, and that the natural systems of the earth and the universe are very complex. There is some uncertainty about this picture. Very likely, though, the projections are not extreme enough. It could be worse than projected. And according to Stevenson, the question now is not whether we're going to stop global warming or solve the climate crisis. It is whether humanity will act quickly and decisively enough to salvage civilization itself in any form worth salvaging. Whether any kind of stable, human, and just future, any kind of just society is still possible. I know it is a horrific vision. I know it is a nightmare. Let's just take a moment to catch our breaths. Maybe wipe our tears. And let's keep holding on to each other's hands. In her book, Active Hope, How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy, Joanna Macy, an environmental activist and Buddhist scholar, she claims that most of us respond in one of two ways to descriptions like the ones I just gave you. We end up in business as usual mode, or in the great unraveling. So let me just describe those two responses in some detail. Business of usual mode is pretty much how it sounds. We know the grim details, but it seems like it's happening to other people, far away and different from us. What do the droughts of South Sudan have to do with us? What does the massive flooding in Bangladesh have to do with us? What do those polar bears perched on small and smaller ice floes have to do with us? Business as usual mode ignores the interdependent web of all existence. Those faraway people and animals, they don't belong to me. They don't matter to my everyday life. In this mode, we don't want to see our interdependence, often because we don't want to change our lives. We don't want to consume less fossil fuel. We don't want to stop eating strawberries in the winter. And even if I stopped eating strawberries in the winter, even if I consumed less gasoline, would it really make any difference? I mean, if the scientists and the technocrats can't reverse the warming of the earth, well, it's too late, and so it doesn't matter. That's kind of like continuing to smoke cigarettes when you're dying of lung cancer. The end is ugly and inevitable. Okay, deep cleansing breath. Here we go. It gets better. Let's hear something sort of about Macy's second response, the great unraveling. which is the response I think a good many of us here are in. I certainly sit in this response too often. In the great unraveling, we know how bad it is. We read science, we read the Washington Post, we listen to NPR. We're frantic over the appointments of oil mogul Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State and climate change denier Scott Pruitt as the head of the Environmental Protection Agency. We look on in shock and disbelief at the treatment of protesters at Standing Rock. We feel guilt and shame that we have brought children into a world that we have abused and depleted. And we are depressed. We are paralyzed. We fret, we lament, we just don't know what to do. We take reusable bags to the grocery store and recycle. We plant vegetables and buy local produce, and we think it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. We sit alone in despair at the way we have ignored the signs and did not act. It is our minds that are unraveling. Okay, deep cleansing breath. I need another one. Hold the hand of the person you love, if you want to, the person you care about. And so what are we going to do in the midst of devastation that many have seen coming for a long time? Many, like the petrochemical executives who purposefully concealed it in order to maximize profits. Many, like the politicians who maintained power by colluding with the petrochemical interests. What are we going to do? Well, Joanna Macy tells us what we're going to do. Active hope, how to face the mess we're in without going crazy. Wynne Stevenson tells us what to do. What we are fighting for now is each other. What is worse, the risk of feeling these feelings and trying to take action? We are worth the risk. We are. Joanna Macy describes a third response, which she and others call the Great Turning. Here's what it looks like. We can hold actions that slow down the damage caused by the political economy of business as usual. Holding actions. We can support life-sustaining systems and practices which challenge and reshape business as usual, new ways to bank, new ways to invest, new ways to farm. And we can bring about a shift in consciousness from a self-centered, what I want way of thinking to what Macy calls the connected self, a wellspring of compassion, a deeper pool of strength that situates us individually, not at the center of our realities, but as part of the web, with the web ever present in our minds. What Macy is describing is a spiritual response to the climate crisis. Wynne Stevenson makes the same point. He says, we are in the midst of a spiritual struggle that forces us to confront the deepest, most fundamental questions about ourselves. So it seems, in church on a snowy Sunday morning, confronting our sorrow about climate change is exactly where we all need to be. Let's feed our spirits so that we can be strong for the work ahead. Here we are in loving community, holding and sustaining each other. And I know there are folks in this congregation who have been working for sustainability and environmental awareness for many years, both by the practices you use in your own homes and in the larger arena of battling fracking and ensuring safe water. I know you have, as a congregation, worked on the Bring Your Own Bag project, to discourage the use of plastic bags. And one of you shared a story with me a few weeks ago about the practice of returning charcoal from the fireplace back into the ground, returning carbon to the earth in order to compensate for as much as possible for the coal and gas and oil this person can't help but use. You are already doing the holding back and slowing down practices that Macy says are crucial. These acts and others like them matter. They all matter. But we need to do more to keep ourselves in the spiritual great turning frame of mind. More to keep fighting for each other. For Stevenson, this means going right to the places where the devastation is already making marks on the lives of vulnerable people. Those forced by business as usual to be the canaries in the coal mines. Places like Love Canal, like Standing Rock, like New Orleans, like Houston, Texas, where so much oil is ripped out of the earth and piped all over the place, where the incidence of asthma and cancer are so much higher than the national averages. We need to go right to those places where those vulnerable people are affected and where they are already battling and have for generations the forces of business as usual. They know how to stay in a fight. They know how to resist. They know how to keep going on. And from them, we can all learn. Joanna Macy, she not only tells us that we need to become part of the great turning, she tries to teach a path to being in that turn. She teaches an active hope that begins in gratitude, that honors the pain we feel of our world as it is, that sees with new eyes, and that acts to define our lives through the values that we hold most dear. Trauma recovery specialist and poet Clarissa Pinkola Estes, she wrote, "Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach." Today, here together, we have shared the pain we feel for our world. We have acknowledged that it is real. In acknowledging this pain, especially by doing it in community, we begin to widen the circles of ourselves, seeing ourselves as connected to those who grow our food, who make our clothing. We see ourselves as connected to the starving of the Sudan, the drowning in Bangladesh, to the polar bears standing on the ruins of their habitats, with those made sick by pollution in India. We see ourselves connected to the generations that arise from us. Ourselves are larger than these isolated bodies. And we want to make things better because of that enlarged sense of self. We begin to see our small part in the larger whole, the world within our reach. We begin to see the mending the part we can reach, that mending the part we can reach is significant. It's not enough. It's always a step in the right direction for the mending. And we begin and end in gratitude for all that is good, for the very mystery of life giving rise to us, to each of us, unbidden and inexplicably wonderful, for the joy of seeing justice done, for hardships eased for cultural differences exalted, for freedom of thought and spiritual exploration, for fairness, for peace, no matter how long those moments last. Every moment is a good moment for which to be grateful. For all the steps, small and large, that we each make, each of us, toward realizing the greater good. And we're grateful for beauty, for the beauty of nature, of art and music, the beauty of companionship and hospitality, for the sharing of fellowship and a good meal prepared lovingly by many hands. Yes, I am wrapping up. It is time for lunch. We have nothing to fight for but each other. And what a worthy pursuit. Why not live the best life, the most connected, caring, and compassionate life? The life we want to bring into the world and to amplify for ourselves and each other. Why do we not want to be the people we want to be in this moment, no matter how long the moment lasts? With these words, a photographer and conservationist, Nancy Newhall. We seek a renewed stirring of life for the earth. We plead that what we are capable of doing is not always what we ought to do. We urge that all people now determine that a wide, untrammeled freedom shall remain to testify that this generation has love for the next. If we want to succeed in that, we might show, meanwhile, a little more love for this one and for each other. Come and go with me to that land of freedom and justice, that land of singing, that land of compassion for those most vulnerable to the climate change upon us all, our family, always our family they are. What is worth the risk? We are worth the risk every time and always. And let that land be here and now, not in some future, but now. Let us bind together in bright relationship with love and compassion, making the land we wish, being the people we wish to be, no matter what stories of the future we see looming. The future is not set. There is nothing but living now as is right and just. That will make all the difference right now and in the still unfolding future. Yes, friends, let us promise that we will risk expanding ourselves for the work of justice and compassion. Let's promise today and every day, as you remember, you are loved, you are worthy, you are welcome, and you are needed. May you feel it so.
Join us for worship every Sunday at 10 a.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua, a welcoming congregation. We are located at 3024 Cooley Road, 4 miles west of South Main Street, Canandaigua, just north of the intersection with Routes 5 and 20. Look for the blue signs just before the turn. Your comments about this program or questions about the church are welcome at 585-396-1370 or at our website, www.canandaiguauu.org. Producer and editor, Daniel Brigham.